Chloe Styler is a singer and songwriter from Southeast Queensland who has developed a unique country pop sound that features great melodies and often wistful, always thoughtful lyrics about life and love and the choices we make in both. Already this year, she has opened for Gladys Knight, Nick Kershaw, and Go West and Shannon Noll. And she's released the singles Time Bomb and 25. Her latest single is Reader Room, and she's in Nashville at the moment. So that's where she's talking to me from. Hello, Chloe.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And great to talk to you when you're on the other side of the world. I love that technology makes this possible. And I'm keen to find out what you've been doing in Nashville.
I've been busy. I've been writing songs. I caught up with my producer, who I now work with, a producer that lives in Nashville. So I've been working with him again. I've been catching up with all the Aussies that have invaded Nashville and obviously friends that I have in town as well. So it's just been a really nice couple of weeks. I'm here for a couple more weeks and it's just really nice to be back.
So is there there should be a list of Australians who live in Nashville now. Someone should be keeping some list somewhere on a website.
Someone should be. I am not that person, but there is a huge group of people, Australians that are just here visiting for CMA Fest, but also that live here. So it's amazing in all different capacities. Like they're not necessarily artists, they may be songwriters or within the music industry or music business. So it's a really inspiring place to be and nice to come and visit every now and then and be amongst it all.
So it's not your first time?
No, this is my fourth trip to Nashville and my third in 12 months.
Oh, okay, right. Well, you have been busy going back and forth. So, given that you have done those visits quite close together, is that because the times before you were setting things up? And but I know you recorded your latest single with Luke Wooten, who is this producer. So, I'm presuming the previous time you might have worked on that there.
Yes. So in June my very first trip, actually, a quick backtrack, I was 15 and I visited for a couple of nights with my parents. We were in America for just visiting other places and we thought, let's go to Nashville because I, love country music. And we spent a couple nights here and it was amazing. Of course it was. And then I didn't get back for 11 years. So
Right.
I came back last year and I was invited to perform at CMA Fest, which is what I'm here for now, but in a different capacity. So last year I got to perform on the Spotlight stage, which was amazing. And I reconnected with Luke Wooten, who is my producer, because when I was here when I was 15, I actually met Luke through a friend.
Oh,
Yeah, but obviously, like I was 15 and I had barely written songs and I didn't really know what I was doing. But we met and my dad and Luke met and everyone stayed in touch. And then when I visited last year for CMA Fest, I got back in touch with Luke and he came and saw my set and it was kind of just like, all right, let's get in the studio if we can. And I came back in September to perform at the Bluebird Cafe and that same trip I recorded with Luke. So that was a very long-winded way of telling you my life story, sorry. But yeah, I've been here a few times over the last year and each trip has a purpose and is an extension of the previous trip.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't at all long-winded. It was in fact quite concise because
Thank
and
you.
necessary because it's always great to understand how these things come together because someone from the outside might think, oh, you just happened to meet this producer and that's how you recorded a song, or maybe you plucked him out of thin air, but it's just to establish that it is a long connection and you diligently working towards it. And I should also point out, that CMA Fest spot that you had, that's a highly competitive thing to get. So when you had that last year, it sounds like you absolutely made the most of it. It wasn't just that you went over there and performed and came back.
No, I tried my best to make the most of it. And my dad was with me, which was so special to share that experience with him because truly all I had ever dreamed of was performing at CMA Fest in Nashville. Like I thought that was it, that's the dream. And then I got to do the dream last year. So to share that with my dad was really special. And now my family's actually in town for CMA Fest at the moment. And that's my mum, my dad, and my sister. And I'm just kind of showing them around and sharing the magic of Nashville with them as well, because I love it. And I think they always wonder, why is Chloe spending all her money on going to this place across the world? Like, what's she doing? So I get to show them and explain it to them and show them why I love it so much.
So when 15-year-old Chloe visited Nashville, was the dream as concise as I want to perform here one day, or was it a more vague thing of, oh, maybe I want to be a musician?
The dream was Nashville,
Okay.
absolutely. Because to be so for real, I love Taylor Swift, and I'm very aware of her story and how when she was around 15, or it was earlier, but when she was in her early teens, her family were in Nashville, and that's how her career took off and where she was when it took off. And so when I was 15, I was like, oh well, obviously. That's where I have to be. But you know, as I've grown and matured and developed, I realize that Australia is home, and I love home. And you can you know, come back and forth with like how amazing technology is, how amazing travel is these days. Like it took, yes, I was a long flight. It was 15 hours from Sydney to Dallas, but it's doable, and you're here within a day, you know? So the dream was always Nashville. So it's cool that I'm living that dream essentially. And I'm doing what I could probably never have imagined when I was 15, because yeah, it was probably more generalized. I want to be a musician in Nashville, or I want to do music in Nashville, but to actually be here and doing it occasionally throughout the year, writing and recording. And like I have some writer rounds when I'm in town this year. And that's really exciting because I was invited by my American friends that live in town to do these rounds. So that's really special to me, to have that trust in me from locals that hear amazing musicians every day, to then trust me to not stuff up for an hour in a writer's round, you know? So I think 15-year-old Chloe would be floored if she knew what I'm doing right now.
Because it's actually not that much time in the span of human existence between
No.
15-year-old Chloe and now. And we all have dreams, and we can all say we have dreams, but to actually make them come true within that space of time is quite phenomenal, actually, because you have to work diligently towards it. So after you had that initial visit as a 15-year-old, you know, what were your musical activities? Were you already writing songs by then? Did you, or probably not directly work towards it, because I think, you know, you were still at school, life happens, you can't necessarily go in a straight line towards something, but were you sort of subconsciously putting things in place to be there by this stage?
When I was 15, I was writing songs, and I was at school. So I would have been in year 10. So year 10, 11, 12, I was involved in all the school musicals. I was in the choirs, in the bands. I played piano and saxophone as well. So I was always doing something creative, and and truly never really envisioned anything else for my life. And it sounds crazy because I have degrees. Like I have a double degree in business management and journalism, but I truly believe I only have them because I felt like I had to go to university after I graduated high school. My school was very academic and didn't push us into uni, but you know, just said, well, this is the next step. And I thought this is the next step. But I think if I didn't go to university, I just would have gone straight into doing music in some way. But I'm really grateful for having uni because I do have a business management degree, and so I can work with that. And I have a journalism degree, so I can do interviews and I can write press releases and whatnot. So it all comes in handy. But yeah, so I was always working towards music in some way. I started doing cover gigs around the Gold Coast where I live when I was about 19. And that is where I learned just how to play a song live for people. Like not someone, because when you're in choir, you're in a group of people, or when you're in a musical theater, you are fully acting or whatever. And then just singing like an Ed Sheeran song at a restaurant, everyone knows that song. So you can't stuff it up, if that makes sense. So that really taught me a lot. And I cover gigged for a long time, which I'm really grateful for that. And then I started doing like the Tamworth Country Music Festival when I was about, I think I was 19 as well. And then I just have been doing that ever since. And then like organically built connections and friendships, and have just been taking it step by step.
Now I can see where the business management degree would be very handy because being an independent artist, knowing how to manage the business of your career is really useful. I'm interested in whether the degree in journalism helped you as a songwriter, in that it's not just writing press releases and doing interviews, but helping you to maybe think of angles in songs, or actually be interested in how language works in your lyrics?
That's a really cool question. I love language, and I did the journalism degree because I wanted to do editing,
Right.
um, specifically for books.
Yeah.
So I'm very nerdy about that stuff. And I am always like looking for different words or different ways of saying things. I mean, that could be thanks to the journalism degree, or it could just be like the nerd in me wanting to use linguistics in a different way than I could. But I mean, like, for example, my song Hometownless, like, that's not even a real word, but it was a cool way to say what I wanted to say. And like with Time Bomb, one of my singles earlier this year, we put the word smithereens in there. And you just use like little quirky words. My latest single, Reader Room, put the word band-aid in there. Which is cool. Like, maybe that is the journalism degree.
Chloe, I need to confess at this stage, I am a book editor by training, and I'm a book publisher, but editing is the way I came to it. So I didn't know
Wow.
that about you. So there you go.
Yeah, that's so cool. What a cool job. I love that. That is awesome.
Well, and it is, I think, as I was saying at the top, in terms of your lyrics, that there are things that I notice in songwriters' lyrics, and you have always had a precision of language. And I remember when I interviewed you around the time of Hometownless, thinking, and I think we talked about it, what a great way to express something, and it almost seemed like that word should exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe it does now. Well, it does
Well,
now. Maybe people need to adopt it.
yeah, I think it's a great one, and it's a fantastic song too.
Thank you.
Listening to it just this week. So, so you are in Nashville at the moment, but you do have to be back in Australia at least by 12th of July, because you are playing country on Keppel. So you're going from the American South to a lovely island.
Yeah, and hopefully it won't be too cold on the island. But honestly, I'm going to get a rude awakening when I land back in Sydney on late June, because it's going to be cold. It's very warm here today, and I can't stress enough how warm it is
Right.
today.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been here a few weeks now, and we haven't had this heat until literally today.
Okay.
And I'm happy to be sitting in the air conditioning right now. So I'm really excited to be doing the Country on Keppel Festival in July. I love the Great Barrier Reef. I love I mean, I'm from the Gold Coast, so I love the ocean and the beaches. So it'll be really nice to go there and just play my music and explore the island, because it's a continental island, so you can go hiking and do all those things. It's not just like a flat island, and
Right.
you can do lots of cool things on Great Keppel. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I've seen some photos of where the stage is for that festival. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
like it's
it's
literally
stunning.
right next to the water. So I think artists and audience get to look out at this beautiful water.
It's stunning. I played that festival in 2019, so it'll be really nice to get back.
Mm. And so also, as I mentioned earlier this year, you've been opening for some fantastic artists, and Shannon Noll, Gladys Knight, Nick Kershaw, Go West. And I imagine that you are not, I imagine you are used to large crowds because you've played a lot of festivals, you've been playing in Nashville. Do you still get nervous with those sorts of shows though?
Yes, absolutely. But I definitely deal with my nerves in a more productive way lately. And I think that just comes with time and comes with experience. So, for example, the Nick Kershaw and Go West shows, I only had about 8 days notice for those. So I didn't really have enough time to be nervous. I just had to like book my flights and do all my own tour managing, because I do everything. And then I woke up and it was time to go to Hobart and do the show. And I just didn't really have a chance to be nervous. I just had to do the show. But then, for example, like Gladys Knight, that was really nerve-wracking to me, because it was a hometown show, I suppose. Like, and I just felt a bit like I knew there would be people in the audience that I know personally. So that was nerve-wracking, but I just try and trick my brain into thinking that I'm excited, because that is genuinely the same bodily reaction, nerves and excitement. I've done a lot of research about this, because it used to really debilitate me. Nerves would really affect my performance and my vocal ability. And then I'd be so disappointed because, like, I know I could have done that better. And why did I choke, XYZ. But I performed at Suncorp Stadium in 2022, and I was so nervous for that. It was my first time using in-ear monitors, so like like hearing everything through there. And obviously it was a stadium, full stop. It was a stadium, which is just nuts. And then it was for a Broncos game. So it was like a big crowd, and I was very, very nervous. But I tricked my brain by going, as soon as I felt nervous, I would audibly say, and I felt very silly, but I would audibly say, I'm excited. I'm excited. And I would just say that every time I felt the nerves. And truly, I wasn't nervous. The day came and I was excited, and I walked out on that field and I was excited. It was the craziest. It was so crazy how you can just manifest a different emotion, essentially. Obviously, like, you know, I had the jitters and I was, you know, really amped up, but it wasn't, oh, dread. It wasn't, oh my goodness, I'm going to throw up. So yeah, nerves do still get to me, but I try and be productive with them.
And you've learned how to reframe it, but it also goes back to that earlier point about language. You use language to reframe things in a way that had a positive impact. And it is, I haven't studied neurolinguistic programming, but I know a little bit about it. So that idea that you're actually telling yourself it's something else, and how the body mind responds to that, there is proof. You're excited.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because you know, you could easily just fall down that hole of, oh my goodness, I'm going to throw up, which I do all the time. Like I have previously, but now I've gotten a lot better at using language and reframing it, and you know, it doesn't mean that the nerves aren't there, but they're not as aggressive.
Yeah. Now, before we talk about your new song, Reader Room, I actually would love to talk about your song 25, because I haven't spoken to you this year yet. You released 25 in April, and that's a really vulnerable, honest song, because you talk about needing to have faith in things working out. So I'm wondering if actually making the song helped you have that faith in things working out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it did. I wrote it with Kaylee Bell and Gavin Carfoot at the APRA AMCOS Song Hubs in 2022. And at the time, I was very lost. I just didn't know what I was doing with my life. Like, we were, you know, coming out of COVID, and things hadn't really picked up again yet in the music industry. So I didn't have any gigs. My songs that I was releasing weren't getting on any playlists. I basically felt like I was starting again, and it was really scary. And so within that regard of my career, I just felt very lost and like, what am I doing? I actually have pressed pause on a master's of primary teaching at uni. So during COVID, I picked up another degree, and just why not, really, just add to my HECS debt, because why not? And so I've done it's only a 2-year degree. I've done half of it, and I deferred it because obviously music is my passion. But at the time I was like, well, I could easily just become a teacher and I could just do that for the rest of my life. But like, that's not my passion. So I was just feeling very confused in that. I was in a relationship that I probably could have left a few months earlier, you know, like it's something that just wasn't sparking joy, as one would say. And I was noticing my friends and like people on Instagram that I went to school with were getting married or having a baby, or, you know, just buying a house, something that felt so out of reach for me at that time. So writing it brought all of that up, and was a very therapeutic experience. And I felt really connected with Gav and Kaylee, because they said the same things. They're a little bit older than me. So they said when we were 25, like, we felt the same thing. And the thing is, nobody knows what they're doing. They might act like they do, but nobody knows, and nobody's got the blueprint, and the blueprint is forever changing. And the beauty is you've got your own, and it doesn't matter what your peers are doing. And honestly, this is actually speaking to me right now, because they're like, you know, I release a song and I have expectations with a song, and I only released a song, you know, quite recently. So some expectations weren't met, and I'm like, oh, but so-and-so got so-and-so. And so me actually saying this is kind of resonating with me at the moment, because I'm like, at the end of the day, everything happens how it's meant to happen. And you can control what you can control.
Yeah.
Can you tell I've been to therapy? Because like, I'm just speaking therapy language. And that's where 25 came from. You can't you can't compare, because that is the thief of joy, and you are never going to be happy with where you are in life. So it was a very nice experience to write that song. I'm so glad it's out, because it feels like a very important song to release, and I've felt really connected with people that have listened to it, because we've all felt this way, and you continue to feel this way at certain points in your life. It doesn't matter if you're 25 or 47, like, you know, it's, you're always going to feel this at some point. But as long as you know that you're not alone, everyone always feels a little bit lost. And also, don't worry about what your neighbor's doing. Just do your own thing, you know? I'm saying that to myself as well.
But look, when you're a woman who chooses a career in a creative field as you have, there is no template for that, really. There are templates for men, I think, because we have seen them as consumers of culture. We see male writers, artists, painters. There are those paths that are set, and we recognize them culturally. I think for women, for young women, there is not that set path. The set path is the settling down and having children, and it's still, even now, a revolutionary path to walk, or maybe an evolutionary path to walk for you as a young woman, to actually say, you know what, I'm actually choosing the less conventional way. But because the path is not clear, you do have to make it up as you go.
It's really scary as well, because I've always wanted that conventional life. I want to, it's so dramatic, but I want to be a mom, and I want to get married. I do want to do those things. But this dream has been inside me since I was so little, that I owe it to myself, and I owe it to 15-year-old Chloe to like give it a go. But it's so scary when you see, like, you know, my friends around me, like, I'm getting wedding invitations, and I just, blows my mind, because I'm not there. But that's okay that I'm not there. They're there, and that's their thing. And I'm in Nashville, and I'm writing songs and trying to say something that means something as well with what I'm saying.
And succeeding at doing that. And it's also the fact that unfortunately, I guess that we have to make the distinction that you're doing that instead of doing the other, rather than having both. Because as you say, you still want the conventional life. But I think that's part of going for a big life as well, is that you dared to dream, you're making the dream come true. Everything is there for the taking.
And I'll get to those things just a little later. And that's okay as well. It's just like all these things that came up during my mid-20s and are still coming up, that I'm just constantly like trying to reassure myself that everything happens when it's meant to happen, and whatever will be, and blah blah blah, all of those quotes. But yeah, I'm a lot more at peace with it now, and I'm so glad that the song is out, because I've heard from a lot of people that it's really resonated with them as well.
That's lovely, and I'm not at all surprised. But I also wouldn't mind betting that Read a Room is resonating with people, and so I'd like you to talk about the story behind that.
Unfortunately, Read a Room is resonating with people, and I say unfortunately because it's just like not a nice topic. It's about being ghosted, and what I say on stage every time I play this song is I then go, if you don't know what being ghosted means, you are so lucky. If you do know, I am so sorry, because I am so sorry if you know what being ghosted means. It's for anyone that doesn't, it's you're dating someone and they essentially die, in quotations, because they stop talking to you with no explanation, and then there's no further communication. So they become a ghost, and you just have to move on like they never existed. So I was in Nashville last year, and I was, you know, playing CMA Fest and meeting all these wonderful people and making wonderful friends and writing great songs. And I was worried about some guy 9,000 miles back home that was ghosting me. So put that into perspective for a second, Chloe. Like, don't worry about him. It doesn't matter. But I was worried, and I was in a songwriting session with Lauren McLamb and Phil Barton, and I just word vomited, which I so easily do, about this situation and the guy and blah, 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 and how dare he, but he's so lucky that I know how to read a room, because I'm not going to keep bothering him. It's just what I kept saying to my friends, what I kept saying in sessions and whatnot. And then we were like, that's a song. Like, I know how to read a room. I'm not stupid, but can you just send me a text? Like, it's just the common decency, you know? So yeah, the song is very personal. It's literally a retelling of a specific dating story I have. So goodness me if this man hears it, but he probably doesn't even care because he ghosted me, so that's fine. But yeah, people have been messaging me and telling me that they either are the ghoster and then I get upset at them, or that they got ghosted.
Mm.
And you know, I'm there for them because I understand.
That's interesting that people who do the ghosting actually contact you and they're like, oops, yeah, I've done it.
Yeah. And I think they realize that maybe we shouldn't be doing that because it takes 2 seconds of your day. No, okay, if we're being specific, maybe 45 seconds to craft a text and say, hey, Chloe, it's been really nice getting to know you. I'm choose A, not looking for anything, B, seeing somebody else, C, not interested. Thanks, so and so. So it just really doesn't take that much, but it's all right. People aren't going to change. What can you do? Just write a song about it.
Well, and also I'm thinking there might be a follow-up song in which you contain that template. It's like, here's how.
Yes.
Here's how to write a breakup song, or here's how to write a breakup.
Here's how to break up with someone. Do that. Yeah.
So, so look, mine your life for all it's worth, Chloe. That is the job of the artist.
And I do, trust me.
But you did put out a video for this song as well, and you mentioned that your sister is with you in Nashville at this point in time that we're speaking, and you made the video with your sister. So how did that come about?
I did. My sister Amy is so talented, and we, well, obviously have known each other our whole lives, but we started only working together in this kind of capacity at the start of this year for the 25 music video. So I have all these grand plans of wanting to release songs every 6 to 8 weeks, but with that comes visuals, and with that comes money that I just don't really have, to be super frank. And I can't really budget those things because it's got to go to recording or other costs that are a little bit more important than a music video, because it's not as it used to be, and it's more just for social media to have some nice content, really. And I just sat down with Amy and, hashing it out, like, oh, what am I going to do this year? And she offered to start taking some photos for me and filming some music videos, because she's always been very handy with a camera, but more like lifestyle or nature kind of photography. But I've always also gotten her to just take photos of really good gigs I get. So, for example, in 2020, I supported Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet, and Amy was my photographer and got one of the passes, and she came and took photos for me, and they were amazing. So I knew she could do it, and I had complete faith in her, but she was just a little bit nervous. But then the 25 music video turned out perfectly, and the cover art was taken by her. So then we went ahead and did the next one, which was Read a Room. And we're calling this one a visualizer because it's a bit more of just like a pretty video to go along with the song, and just like accompany the song with a nice visual. But she took the cover art photo and all the other photos that I've been posting as well. And we've also, just before I left for Nashville, filmed a new one, which will be coming out in a few months. So I'm really so grateful to my sister for everything that she does, because it is so helpful. And like, it's just such an expensive game, and you've got to choose where you're budgeting, really. And I just couldn't fathom it anymore. So I'm just really glad that we're working together. And also I get to work with my sister, which is really fun.
Yeah. But part of what I noticed about the visualizer is that you have a fantastic dress on. And I'm mentioning it because you do take great care with the visual aspects of your performance. And I love talking about that stuff. So we're going to talk about it. And part of getting that visualizer right is putting that dress on. So yes, Amy can make that video with you. You can work together well. But for you to have that sense of what's going to look good in the video, there's actually a skill. It's not a random pluck it out of thin air. So how long have you been interested in that aspect of being an artist?
I've always been interested in fashion for my artistry, because to me, like, that's, if you're on stage, that's the first impression. You walk out on stage and people see what you're wearing. And I don't think of that as a negative. I think of that as a really cool opportunity to dress up and impress people or whatever, with what you're trying to say as an artist. So I always go for pinks. Yeah. With the scarf.
Thoroughly endorse that, Chloe. Thoroughly endorse pink. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Or like just like a bright color, and usually like a white cowgirl boot. So when I'm on stage, it's almost like a uniform, and I like it being a uniform as well, because I feel like I step into the stage ready self as well. And then with music videos and photo shoots, I do work with a stylist. So I, bounce ideas back and forth. So for Read a Room, I sent her a few options and was like, what do you think would work? And she gave me some feedback, and then I went with what I felt was best. And then for others, like for example, with Time Bomb, she pulled some clothes, and her name is Tamsin Holland, and she was on set with me, and she's done that a few times, and it's just like such a great friendship that we have, because she really understands me and my vibe, and what I'm trying to portray as an artist, because I love color, I love fun and really bold statements as well. There's one dress I wear that's pink and got like black Western embroidery, which is just like the most perfect thing to exist in the world. I truly believe like it is just the best dress ever. And if I could buy 100 of them, I would, but then people will only ever see me wearing that dress. So I need a more extensive wardrobe.
Yeah. And often dress is denigrated, or an interest in fashion is denigrated, but adornment is common to all cultures and has been throughout time since humans started existing. And there is that idea of costume, and that what you've just described as your uniform, that is costume. It's not necessarily how you dress in everyday life. But I often think about what Her Late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II said about her own clothing choices. She always wore bright colours, so that if people were hundreds of meters away, they could say that they saw her. So I think for playing in a festival, it makes absolute sense to dress in a bright color, so that if someone's at the back of the crowd, they can still say they've seen you.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't know that. That's a really cool way of looking at it. And maybe without even knowing that's what I do, because I just love, I love color, specifically pink. But occasionally blue. And I just find it really fun to wear.
Yeah. Well, pink does make people happy. There was research done many years ago now that I read about, where they did some experimenting on painting a room. I think it was in a schools where children were sent when they were misbehaving. And the color of room that calmed children down the most was pink.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I have not been calm today, so I don't know.
But you're not looking at it, you're wearing it. I think it's the
I'm
thing.
wearing it. So
you
true.
do look at it.
It's not like osmosis. It's not entering my body. No.
But yeah, color, there's all sorts of stuff about color theory. It's absolutely a thing. And certainly I think we as humans appreciate it, even on a subliminal level, when someone takes care with that. We may not understand it, but someone takes care with it and remember it, as I certainly have noticed with your clothes. So even though you work with a stylist, do you tend to go off and fossick yourself in boutiques and secondhand shops and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite brands is Alice McCall, and Alice McCall actually doesn't exist anymore. I mean, she does exist, that's her name, but the brand itself doesn't exist. So I was devastated when that happened, because I just love everything that Alice McCall makes, and her eye is just amazing. So I have been like trawling through Facebook Marketplace and Depop looking for like unworn Alice McCall's, and I found quite a few. And I actually have seen on her Instagram that she's looking at creating a new brand, so that's really exciting for me. But yeah, I do often it's more online shop. I find some cool little websites that other people aren't necessarily wearing. I like to just be a little bit different. But obviously there's only so many clothes in the world, and I'm trying to not do the fast fashion thing. So I'm trying to just get pieces, although they're a little bit more expensive, I will wear them until they fall apart kind of clothing. So, and I've always been that way inclined. Like I still have clothes in my wardrobe from 12 years ago that I still wear. So that's really important to me as well.
Well, and that is, yes, the anti-fast fashion way to do things.
Yeah.
So even though we know what's coming up in the short to medium future, you've got Country on Keppel in July. What else is ahead for you this year?
I have a couple more singles coming out. While I'm in Nashville, I'm back in the studio recording more. And we were actually talking today about what that will look like, if that's an EP or an album or just singles. So that was an exciting conversation. I got a little bit nervous because I was like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for an album, but maybe I am. Thank
you are.
Oh, that's very sweet. So yeah, there's a lot of new music happening this year for me, and just connecting with people as well. So I'm doing a lot of co-writing for other people as well. So I have there's been 2 songs released this year that I was a co-writer on, and I think there's a few more coming out later this year that I was also a co-writer on. So that's an exciting time for me, because I love songwriting, and if I can help someone bring their story to life, that's really cool.
Partly how I know you're ready for an album is you did have EPs that were side A and side B, which was basically an album. So, yeah.
Truth behind that is it was an album. And then I got so nervous, I just split it in half and was like, I'm not ready. And I just cut it in half and was like, here's two. Do what you will with them.
So if we use your own reframe, if I put that back at you, you're no longer nervous, you're excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm so
excited to release an album. Yes.
One day.
That's right. But in the meantime, you have lots of exciting things happening, and you have a wonderful new single out called Read the Room. And Chloe Styler, what a delight to talk to you as ever. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.